Hello. Uh, Hello. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good time today at the Future of Gaming. So today, the topic that we have is on basically gaming Web3 infrastructure. So we have here a very diverse group of panel from 3 different blockchain ecosystems. So without further ado, I'll give them a short time to briefly introduce themselves. Yeah, Kevin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, my name is Kevin Egan. I am part of the BD team at Immutable. I've been here for just over 18 months. Been in the games industry for 10-ish years. Spent some time at AWS before and GameSparks and a studio. So seen lots of different things and excited about Web3 is all about.
Hi, my name is XR. I'm from the investments team at Elf Ventures. Elf is a L1 blockchain, and for the short term, we are focusing a lot on gaming and GameFi, hence participation here at today's event, and happy to meet everyone.
Hi, everybody. I'm Altan. I work for the Near Foundation. I used to be an engineer, now work in the BD and strategy side. So come from a technical background, but I can also talk about the commercial side of things on the gaming front, and I worked on a couple of different gaming deals with our team. So I'm glad to see everybody here.
Yeah, thanks everyone. So I'm Henry. I'm from Beck. I'll be the moderator for today. So traditionally, kind of building games on Web3 infrastructure has brought a lot of constraints for traditional developers. So today we will go into some of these topics together, the 3 of them. So first off, what do you guys think about the state of Web3 gaming infrastructure today?
From my side, I kind of see it as like a big box of Lego. And that maybe my 3-year-old has kind of turned upside down on the floor, but it's kind of, all the pieces are in place, and now it's about just kind of putting the pieces together and kind of giving somebody the finished product in terms of what a traditional game developer needs to basically run a Web3 game or run a kind of P2P marketplace within a game, so players can trade these assets, with each other. So yeah, that's kind of where the way I see it right now.
Oh, it's very interesting. Yeah, XR, do you have anything you want to add on?
Yeah, I think definitely the state right now is very new. Everyone here is an early adopter in the space. I think even if you have good people at Lattice and Mud and Dojo building good infrastructure services for the Web3 gaming space, I think, like the previous speaker mentioned, there's a number of 3 billion gamers in the Web2 space, but only about 1 million in Web3. It's still very much in the early stages of adoption. If you think back, the internet, it first started out as a way for universities to speak with each other, and then entrepreneurs decided, it was a way that they could commercialize shopping, gaming, music online, and that's when the mainstream adoption started. So I think it still remains to be seen here whether it's going to be a case of enough infrastructure being provided to allow devs and users to easily come on board the Web3 gaming scene, or is it that users and gamers are going to realize there are a lot of benefits to blockchain gaming, right? Like verifiable ownership, trustlessness, that brings in more devs to build better and more infrastructure options for the Web3 gaming space.
Yeah, Elton?
Yeah, I think it depends, right? So it depends on what sort of game you're building. Like if you're building a pretty basic sort of primitives of interacting with NFTs or fungible tokens, it's pretty easy to do, right? Especially on Near, for example, we have a very interesting sort of account model where we can create keys, and those keys, as long as you can sign once, you can use them for almost forever, right? So which is great. But we had a great chat with XR just before coming here, sort of thinking about how like fully on-chain games are built. Like we're still far away from that, and we had good discussions in terms of let's take everything off-chain and do the computation and prove back on, and it's still not fully on-chain, right? So there's still challenges there. I guess there's a lot of SDKs and everything being built, but I think we're still in the primitives, which we're excited about, and sort of trying to figure out how we can do that on the layer 1 and in the Near protocol. So.
Yeah, so I think that's a good segue into what's kind of missing then from today in terms of Web3 infrastructure. What do you think needs to be there for us to take the next step into on-chain development?
Yeah, I can start from our side. Like we still don't have something like Dojo, for example, like a fully on-chain gaming engine. Those are things that we wanted to be built. Better SDKs for us. We have one, maybe Unity SDK. But just building those more and more, and having those more games being tested, and as we get more games, I guess we figure out what the primitives are and what we need on every blockchain, right? So I guess for Near, we've started sort of as a layer 1, and we're growing our sort of focus to be multi-chain in every sort of direction, right? Opening up Near protocol to different builders, had different sort of stuff like Near DA that's been launched. So not only for Near, but I guess like seeing other things being built and just kind of getting that iteratively done. So that's the goal, I guess, going forward.
Yeah. XR?
Yeah, I think if you go back a year or even 2 years, like people would say what we have been missing would be a seamless onboarding experience, right? Like if you imagine using MetaMask, and like you mentioned with session keys, imagine having to approve and sign every microtransaction that you're trying to make with an NPC in a game. Like it would be a terrible experience for a gamer. And then came about account abstraction wallets that allow for session keys, obviously, and then obviously with seedless onboarding, it allowed for Web2 users to play a Web3 game without necessarily knowing that they're playing a Web3 game. Right? And then came the advent of user-generated content, and now you see a lot more GameFi companies creating no-code platforms to allow users to easily generate more content for them to use in-game. But then I think with regards to the infrastructure missing right now, I think more and more people are realizing the full potential of on-chain gaming with regards to like user-generated logic. And I think right now it's a very, very niche minority of gamers who have that coding background to be able to fully leverage the possibilities of user-generated logic. So then I think what I'm looking forward most to next in the infrastructure space would be people providing that no-code or at least low-code ways for people to generate their own logic without much of coding backgrounds to be able to leverage the full potential of on-chain games.
I think from my side, I kind of spend most of my time speaking to kind of more traditional Web2 developers who are kind of adopting Web3. And really, I suppose the piece that they're looking for is kind of a full end-to-end solution. Like we've seen this in the Web2 world 10 years ago with Photon and PlayFab and GameSparks and other managed services like that. That there's a real kind of need and a want from that community to build them. And I think for Web3, adopting that kind of mainstream Web2 developer, games developer, to build Web3 games, then the user base come after that. Again, touching on what you said about the onboarding thing, the wallet side of the wallet side of the house. It's this is a thing where we're trying to solve at the moment. I don't think there's any kind of solution out there that's kind of nailed it just yet. But there's a lot of people trying to fix that problem, which is good.
I see. Yeah. So just in terms of like Web3 development, in terms of gaming, right? What kind of other trade-offs do you guys see? Why should people consider building on-chain? And is there any way for them to explore new innovations? What do you think about that?
I think again, touching on the traditional game developer, the trade-off is do Web2 or do Web3. You know what I mean? There's a lot of the playbooks exist for Web2 right now, and when they're looking at, they're operating their own P&Ls and so forth. They're looking for kind of a more data-driven approach, and right now the kind of data is not there to support Web3. But we know what's the longer-term plan and the longer-term vision for the area. So that's what kind of makes it really interesting.
Nice. I see. XR?
Yeah, I think if the question is about trade-offs for building on-chain games, I think the implicit assumption there is that there are a lot of benefits to on-chain gaming. But I think right now we're still in such an early stage that devs or gamers or users, they're not necessarily certain of the benefits that on-chain gaming could bring. And therefore, then if you consider the things like devs, for example, having to learn a new language, for example, having to adopt a new paradigm of on-chain game engines, right? That's not like something that's easily accepted by their minds, right? Like I'm not even sure of the benefit, yet I have to give up so much in cost. Like just to use one example, right? Like if you're thinking about matchmaking systems, I think in Web2 matchmaking, MMR systems are sort of a given, right? You create a game and then you can just plug and play a MMR system that makes sense for your game. But right now, as far as I know, on chain, there isn't such a solution, right? And then if you're going to have a decentralized way of matchmaking, are high skill level players always going to seek out lower skill level players for certainty of rewards, how are you going to then adjust the rewards mechanism in your game to fit that sort of on-chain matchmaking systems, right? So like, there are a lot of things that you have to consider, even like the game logic, the game mechanics, the reward mechanics in your game to think about bringing in a blockchain version. It's not as simple as just taking a Web2 version, building an SDK, building a backend, and that can talk with your smart contract layer, and then just kind of plugging that entire Web2 version and put it in Web3. It doesn't work like that, right? So like there are many more trade-offs that you have to think of as a game developer to consider when you're trying to build a Web3 version.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this. So I think Kevin worked at AWS before. So like, how do we think about this as a space, right? I mean, we start building all these SDKs, we start building these modules and things like that. But I guess, how do we build this? And we have Alchemy and Morales built already like SDKs. But seems to be that, is that enough? Like, do we need more things to be built that are sort of specific to blockchain gaming? And how do we build this sort of full-on end-to-end gaming stack that's still easy for a Web2 developer to use, but also Web3 developer to kind of jump in as well? So like, how do we think about this in terms of what that stack looks like, and add the fully on-chain gaming, right? That's the second piece. So there's still a solution there that's probably end-to-end that needs to be built, and that's something, I guess, the future vision of that. And apart from building that, on fully on-chain gaming that I wanted to mention before is, you can actually start building these experiments on Near, which is, we can build fully decentralized apps. So you have your front end to be directly written on a blockchain and rendered from a blockchain. So you can start there even as well, like building those experiences and building even little things there to be expanded upon later. So yeah, those are some thoughts.
I see, yeah. So I think we can dive a little bit more into your various ecosystems, right? What are some of the existing problems that you see very frequently from people who are trying to build games on your respective ecosystems?
Yeah, for us, I guess, like, we have a lot of users. So we have Sweatcoin that has sort of 1 million users, monthly active users, which is launched 2012, which is kind of gaming, but not really real-world gaming in some way. We have Playamber, who's been building a bunch of different sort of casual games. But one of the challenges I'm seeing is just how do we have these users, when you abstract the chain, it's really hard to get them to understand that's a chain and then bring liquidity over, right? So that's the thing that we're sort of trying to figure this out as to how do you abstract the chain, but also ensure that you have some sort of economics being created. So that's what I guess the next phase of Near protocol should look like. How do we figure this out to be done?
Yeah. I think first at ELF, like the setup that we have, our programming language is C#, so it's the same language as Unity. We have very low gas fees on the chain, and basically our thesis right now is focusing a lot on Web2 gaming studios who want to build a Web3 version. And I kind of alluded to this earlier, right? Like for these guys, as much as possible, we're trying to lessen the burden of having to build blockchain infrastructure for them, so we let them focus on what they're good at, which is game development, game design, and then we take over the burden of trying to build the blockchain infrastructure for them, whether that's writing the smart contracts for the tokens, helping them to build their logic on chain. But I think a lot of these guys, because they're stuck in their Web2 sort of world of gaming, I mean that's all they've known the entire careers, and they don't understand that if you want to build something on chain, it's not as simple as taking it and just plugging and play there. Like you have to think about the differences the game economy makes to the users. What behaviors does it encourage in your users? What behaviors are you trying to encourage in your behavior in your users, right? So then for them, like it's a quite a big paradigm shift in terms of mindset for them to think about what are the different ways I can encourage the behaviors that I want. What are the ways I can discourage the behaviors that I don't want to see in my gamers? So then that's something that we're sort of seeing when games are trying to work with us at the moment.
Yeah, I think what I've kind of trend I've seen recently is, companies I've spoken to a year ago were, all multi-chain. We want to be everywhere. We want to exist on everything, and that kind of conversation has kind of come back round now to, okay, maybe that's a bit too much for us to try, and a bit too much for us to try and bite off. Like over the years, I've seen so many big projects that 10 years ago were, they want to be set up as multi-cloud. This was the whole approach, matchmaking on different clouds and attaching players and different things. When it actually comes out, when the game actually gets built, it's never multi-cloud. You know, it's an ambition. It's a nice ambition to start. You keep all options open, but when the game actually comes out, it's never really like that. So I'm kind of starting to see that little trend kind of happening in terms of companies that I spoke to 6 months ago, 9 months ago, who were looking to do everything, and now they're kind of going, okay, well, we need a good starting point. We need our first house before we start building our second or our third one. So that's, it's been interesting to see how that plays out over the next kind of 6 months or so.
Nice, nice. Thanks for sharing, guys. So we've tried to keep the conversation pretty general over here, but I'll use the remaining time to kind of let each of them to run through what kind of gaming developers they are kind of looking for, what kind of help they could provide for you guys, what kind of services they can do. So maybe we can start with Kevin.
Yeah, like the main developers we're kind of working with are, are how we evaluate game projects, and in terms of how we support them is, first up is the team, right? We're looking for people who have the proven ability of shipping product, right? And can build great games. So we place a lot of emphasis on that. With that comes, kind of leads into it a lot, which is the funding side, because you need the cash, you need the runway to be able to do it. But you hope that if the team is solid, then the cash will come after that. And then it's just, getting to a playable, right? Like that, to actually have a game that people can actually sit and, even in a really early beta, is so important. It kind of, I think from a VC's perspective and from our perspective, it de-risks the thing massively, right? And then it's getting yourself to, getting the KPIs and then time to market, right? It's great building big projects that are 1, 2, 3 years away from launch, but from our perspective, everyone is looking for, to get that big hit early. So, games that are 3, 6, 9 months TTM is a lot more attractive than stuff that's 2 or 3 years away out. Not to say that we're not interested in the other stuff, but we do place a greater emphasis on stuff that's going to get out quicker, right? Because they can start really early stage products, right? They can start like iterating, right? Like live ops games and stuff like that. Games are never really finished, right? It's a consistent iteration process, and to get that right now and to start that iteration process right now gives you such an advantage compared to people who are kind of still in the building phase.
Yeah, I think for us at ELF, I think I mentioned this earlier as well. Like the Web2 gaming world is 3,000 times bigger than your Web3 world. So then for us, what we're looking for at the moment is a lot of Web2 game studios who have a proven track record in the Web2 space. And then we're helping them to build the blockchain infrastructure, to build a blockchain version of their games. And then I think for us, the way that we have set up is that we have a native AA wallet on ELF blockchain that allows for obviously seedless onboarding, session keys, but more importantly also arbitrary gas fees. I think for a Web2 user to come on board to Web3, there are a lot of barriers and a lot of obstacles for them that might deter them from trying not just a Web3 game, but any Web3 protocol, right? Like if I have to note down my seed phrase, I have to remember this piece of 12-word phrase that if I lose, I'll lose access to all my funds and all my assets. It's a daunting task for them, right? So as much as possible, we want to make it basically the benchmark for us, right? If we can get a Web2 gamer to play a Web3 game and they don't know that they're playing a Web3 game, that to us is a metric for success, right? And then at the end of the day, when they realize that I'm actually playing a blockchain game and that I was able to spend 10, 15 hours a day for the past 6 months, and now I'm able to monetize the time that I spent, the effort that I spent upskilling myself into a high-skill player, and I can sell basically the assets and the time that I've spent grinding the game. I think for them, as a Web2 user, then you realize the benefits of a blockchain game simply as you're now able to own the time and the assets that you spend on the game, and then you're able to monetize that if and when you decide to leave the game. So that for us is the thesis at the moment.
Yeah, I think for us, so we have a business development team that is usually the sort of the entry point to the ecosystem if you're coming from outside the ecosystem. So for that, we do investments, like small investments and sort of do grants. So we would usually do some ticket along with some VCs, and then sort of, we used to set monthly active users as a goal for us, but given now we've just like number 3, number 4 in terms of monthly active usage across sort of protocols. Now we're thinking about like how do we sort of change that perspective in the next year, right? How do we sort of ensure that the assets that we talk about are something that generates value, right? So how do we ensure that? That's one. And the other thing I'd love to see, I guess, it's more of a broader question, but coming from a technical standpoint, like a game that's studied probably Near protocol, understands how Near works and understands the primitives of Near, and then comes back and says, well, these are the things I've seen that are very specific to Near that I can't do elsewhere. And I want to build on Near. It's perfect, right? That's the type of founders we want to have on the earlier stage, and get them the support they need from the start, starting from investment to marketing, everything you also need from the foundation side. So that's how I see sort of the gaming on Near to be evolving, and super excited for all the protocol primitives that we're building.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, so I think we're going to kind of come to the end of the panel discussion here. So super thankful for all of your insights. If any one of you want to look for them, they'll be around the hall. Thanks everyone for your patience, for listening, and yeah, hope to see everyone. Have a good time for the rest of the evening. Yeah, thanks guys.
Thank you.